Hello? This feels ominous. Alien pseudopods coming at me from every direction.
George, what is it like to come to something like Comic-Con and see just how big and crazy the show has gotten over the past few years?
Well, it's pretty overwhelming. But of course, I've been seeing it all around the world. I mean, a couple weeks ago, I was in France, Dijon, France, not even in Paris, but in Dijon, in Burgundy, and we had 3,000 people sign up for a book signing. Some of them standing in line, for a day and a night to make sure they got in. So everywhere I go in the world, the Game of Thrones is there. We have the Queen coming by to visit the Iron Throne, and Comic-Con is the ultimate example of that. So many people here, so much enthusiasm. It's wild.
Hey George, you have a huge audience throughout the world. Part of that audience are men and women of our armed forces that watch on American Forces Network, all deployed around the world. What do you have to say to them?
I hope they all come home safely, and I appreciate their courage and their dedication and their service. These are the guys of the real Night's Watch, who they are the watchers on the walls. They are the shield that guards the realms of men.
Was there anything that surprised you that was a departure from the book to the TV show?
Well, there are a lot of departures, of course, some very trivial and some larger. I can't say they surprised me. I mean, I am a co-executive producer on the show, so I work with David and Dan, and I kind of know what's coming. So by the time it's actually on TV, I've known of it for 6 months or more.
George, has there been a character that's been more difficult to develop, been more problematic to develop for television?
Well, for television, you really have to ask David and Dan. I know writing the books, which is my main function. Bran, I've always said, is the hardest character to write. He's the youngest of the viewpoint characters, and when you're writing from the viewpoint of an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old boy, you have to kind of put yourself in a different mindset and say, okay, well, this is what's going on, but how would you understand it? Also, he's the character who's most deeply involved in magic, and in fantasy, magic is tricky to write. Magic can easily overwhelm your story if you handle it wrong. So writing the Bran chapters is always a challenge for me. It goes a little more slowly than some of the other chapters.
George, any reaction to the huge international interest in Game of Thrones overseas?
Well, I'm gratified by it. I think we're, the most successful internationally show that HBO has ever done. HBO has done some great shows, so I don't think that's an issue of quality, but there's a universality to the Middle Ages setting that doesn't apply to some of the more specifically American shows, like The Sopranos, which is about a guy from New Jersey. And I am a guy from New Jersey, and I love The Sopranos, but maybe if you're in Croatia or Singapore or Korea, that doesn't necessarily speak to you, New Jersey, the way that Westeros will, because virtually every society around the globe has passed through a medieval period where they had castles and warriors with swords and some version of knighthood or a warrior caste and all that. So,
George, a lot of people read political messages into a lot of the storylines, particularly Daenerys's. What do you have to say on that officially?
I'm not a fan of allegory any more than Tolkien was, but I do think there are certain universal truths. People know my life story, know that I was a conscientious objector during the Vietnam War, but I'm not a complete pacifist. I've espoused on that in the past. But I'm not writing a thinly disguised political allegory of current political situations. If I wanted to write a story about Iraq, I would write a story about Iraq. That said, there are universals. There are things that are true all throughout history of all time. And when you're talking about war and peace and government, these are things that were true from the Roman Empire or ancient China or ancient Egypt to the present day. And there are lessons to be learned there, and hopefully some of them apply to our present day situations.
I love that you said you're still a fan. Were there any panels here at Comic-Con that you snuck into, maybe?
Sadly, I was unable to sneak into any panels here at Comic-Con. I would have liked to, but I've become too recognizable. I mean, if I walked into a panel and sat in the back, I would kind of ruin the panel, because everybody sitting around me would be paying attention to me instead of people on the stage. But that's I would like to go to some of them. I'd like to go to some of the comic book panels, because I do like to follow what's going on in comic books. And like I said on the stage, I'm an old comic book geek.
Wear a mask next year.
Yeah,
Have you considered doing that?
I have considered doing that. It's just masks are so hot. I don't know how these cosplay people do it without fainting. But I did actually pack with me. A number of years ago, I rode in Mardi Gras for a few years, and with Endymion, one of the super crews, and every year when you ride on Mardi Gras, they give you a costume. I had a few of those, so I brought one of my Mardi Gras costumes, but I never had the chance to put it on.
Last one, yes.
George, if you had a pet dragon, what would you name it?
Oh, I don't know, Puff.